Hi everyone, I'm Miranda and welcome to my YouTube channel. Today I'm so excited to be sharing my first in a series of festive Christmassy videos. I know that it's a little bit early, but a few people have been asking me about my Christmas book recommendations since October. And because of the extraordinary circumstances we're in now around the world with postage being delayed, I thought it would be a good idea to start sharing my Christmas cozy reading recommendations with you now. So hopefully you may have time to get inspired by these videos and pick up some books, order some books that you don't already have but might want to read this Christmas. I know it's been a very stressful year for many of us, and I hope that these books, whether you celebrate Christmas or not, I just hope that they offer a little bit of comfort and cheer at this time. I love Christmas myself and I've collected so many Christmas books that I can't wait to share with you, but I do understand that this can be a very difficult time of year for many people, especially right now when it is a very stressful time. So what I really hope with these videos is just to provide a little bit of comfort, a little bit of cheer. I always turn to books for solace, and that's something I always really hope to give my viewers on this channel, is just that joy and comfort of books. I think they really enrich our lives. So I hope that you find these videos inspiring if you watch them. This will be part one of my cozy Christmas reading recommendations. I have built up quite a collection of Christmas books, so I have a lot to share with you. I'll be doing a part two and also a video on Christmas anthologies and poetry collections separately, because I have a lot of those. Christmas isn't Christmas for me without a really good anthology and poetry collection, so I'll do a separate video for those books that I have. I'll also be doing some gift guides, bookish gift guides of course, and some more cooking and Christmas inspired videos over December. I'll be reading Christmassy extracts, and my mum and I are planning some fun recipes that are festive to share with you too. So lots to look forward to, I hope. But let's get started on the first video recommendations. I've got quite a big stack here. So first up, I wanted to recommend Just William at Christmas by Richmal Crompton. Richmal Crompton wrote many books for children under the Just William series. Just William is a very naughty boy and he has lots of friends, and they gather together as a group called the Outlaws, and they all get up to no good. And her writing actually reminds me a bit of sort of P.G. Wodehouse for children. I think that's why adults still love reading these, because all of the stories are so tightly plotted. You always wonder how William is going to get out of his latest scrape, but he always does manage it, or almost always anyway. And I love the Christmas stories that are gathered together in this volume. There's also an Audible edition of this book, which is read by Martin Jarvis, and I so recommend that. It's just so funny and light-hearted. I always giggle when I read or listen to the Just William books, so this is a real favourite of mine. Then I wanted to share this book, which is called Who Killed the Curate? A Christmas Mystery by Joan Coggin. I love reading cozy mysteries at Christmas. There's always at least one by my bedside table. I always hope to get a new one on Christmas Day. I just love cozy mysteries generally, but there's something special about reading them at this time of year, especially ones set at Christmas, which this one is. I read this book years and years ago, and I actually discovered this author because I loved her schoolgirl stories. There's a book called Audrey, a New Girl, that I absolutely adored as a child, and Joan Coggin wrote those stories under the name Joanna Lloyd. But her mysteries by Joan Coggin are great reads for adults. And this is a really funny one. They're very light-hearted. It's about a very scatterbrained, newlywed young woman. She's the new sort of wife of the village vicar, and she's really struggling in the role. And then the vicar's curate is killed, and she sets out to find out who the killer is. But she's rather dismayed that all of the suspects actually seem to be much nicer people than the curate. And it's just a very light-hearted, entertaining, golden age style mystery, and quite a nice Christmas read too, so I recommend it. Then I absolutely love A Murder Most Unladylike Mysteries by Robin Stevens, and this is a fabulous Christmassy one in this set. It's called Mistletoe and Murder. These are set in a boarding school, and they follow the stories of two young friends, Daisy and Hazel, who set themselves up to be young lady detectives, and they solve all sorts of crimes that occur in and outside of their school. This one is set outside of their school. It's set in the Christmas holidays in Cambridge, and it's just so atmospheric. I love it. The first time I read this, I went to Cambridge at Christmas time, and it was just such a beautiful time of year to visit the city. We had buns at Fitzbilly's, which is their famous cafe there, to have buns, and they go and visit that tea shop in Mistletoe and Murder too, and the lights were all out. It was just charming, and Robin Stevens really brings that feeling of Cambridge at Christmas time to life in this book. So I really enjoyed it. It's a great read for young children, but also for adults. I still love reading this. Next up, I really enjoy short story collections generally at this time of year. They're nice, easy reads to read at bedtime, or hopefully by a roaring fire, hot chocolate to hand. And this is a collection I got a few years ago, I think. It's Snowdrift and Other Stories by Georgette Hare. Now, if I remember correctly, only about the first one or two short stories in this were particularly sort of snowy, or like wintry and Christmassy. The rest weren't, particularly sort of festive reads at all. However, I love Georgette Hare. She's one of my favourite cosy reads generally. She writes books that are set in the Regency period, rather in the style of Jane Austen, but I would say they're much more just light-hearted, fun and funny reads. Her heroines are always eloping with romantic love interests, and they're just full of fun and humour, and they're great cosy reads, and I love this short story collection. Georgette Hare also wrote a really great Christmas mystery. She wrote a few Golden Age crime mysteries too, which was first published under the title Envious Casca, but I think it's now been republished as a Christmas mystery, something quite standard like that. And that's a really fun Christmassy read too. But I also wanted to point out these short stories because I read them one Christmas and just really enjoyed them. They were a wonderful, cozy read. And then next up, I have to read Agatha Christie at Christmas time, and there are some great festive collections of her stories. This one is The Adventure of the Christmas Pudding, and it's a collection of classic Hercule Poirot stories. Again, not all of them are Christmassy, but there are a couple, I think at least, good Christmas ones in here. The Adventure of the Christmas Pudding is the most famous one. That's in here. And it's just a really, nice collection, I think. I enjoy short stories. It might just be the Christmas Pudding one that is Christmassy in here, but it is worth getting for that one. And like I said, I just generally enjoy short stories and Golden Age crime at this time of year, so I do like this collection. And then I've mentioned this collection before. It was on my wish list for October, and I got it for my birthday in October, which was wonderful, and I can't wait to read it all through December. and that's Midwinter Murder by Agatha Christie. And this is a sort of collection of some of her Christmassy, festive sort of short stories. It's got The Chocolate Box, A Christmas Tragedy. That's actually one of my favourite Miss Marple short stories. I always either read or listen to that short story at Christmas. So there are some festive reads in this one as well, and also just some really good short stories of the Golden Age style crime. So I love the cover of this one too. I think it's fabulous. So I'm looking forward to that one this year. Then, of course, there's the classic Hercule Poirot's Christmas by Agatha Christie. This is a full-length novel, one of the Hercule Poirot mysteries, and it is a favourite of mine. I think it's a really clever one. Of course, it's all set over the Christmas period too, and it's just so atmospheric. If you haven't read it before, then I do recommend curling up with it one evening, because I really enjoy this one. More Christmassy short stories. This is the collection called The Mistletoe Murder and Other Stories by P.D. James. Again, not all of them are Christmassy in this collection, but I think at least one or two are. And I just love the cover. I loved reading all of these stories. I think P.D. James is such a brilliant writer. I love her short stories as well as her longer novels, and this is a great read. I'm looking forward to returning to this actually, because I think I read it a couple of years ago first, and I'd like to come back to them because I don't remember who did it half the time, so fortunately I can reread them. Now, A Child's Christmas in Wales by Dylan Thomas is just a family favourite of ours at Christmas time. I absolutely love to listen to Dylan Thomas reading this. It's such a wonderful listen. I'll put the link to the Audible as well as the physical book in the description box down below. My dad would always put this audio book on every Christmas. It really sort of signalled the start of the Christmas season in our household when we listened to this. And it's just a very poignant, nostalgic look back at a childhood spent in Wales. And listening to the author reading it is even more important, I think, because it is such a poetic tale, and hearing it in his voice is really special. So yes, this is a Christmas classic for me. And then next up, I love the Christmas crackers that John Julius Norwich would compile every Christmas. I think it started as a personal project that he would do. He'd make selections from the Commonplace book that he kept throughout the year, and he'd send it off to friends and family, and gradually some of his friends and acquaintances would contribute some of their own extracts, sayings, clever quotes, things like that, that he also ended up putting in his own Christmas crackers. I've bought a few of his Christmas crackers. Sadly, the last one was in 2018. He died that year, which was very sad. But then they brought out the ultimate Christmas cracker, which has sort of collected the best of his Christmas crackers through the years. I think he was creating them from the 1970s or something like that. So it was a real feature of his Christmas, and something that came to be shared amongst so many people as well. I love reading commonplace books at Christmas time, and books that have little extracts. I mean, they're not necessarily Christmassy or festive extracts. That's not the point of them. They're just entertaining, amusing, interesting stories, quotes, just short little snippets that are compiled in a single volume. And this book has collected the best of them, and I think it's a really good Christmassy read. So again, one that I would recommend. These are actually what the original Christmas crackers looked like. I've collected a few of them, and you can see they were quite attractive and just nice slim little volumes to read, but I really recommend that bigger collection of the best of them. Next up, you know how I love Nancy Mitford, so of course I have to recommend her Christmassy book, which is Christmas Pudding by Nancy Mitford. In all honesty, this isn't one of my very favourites of hers because it's quite an early work and I just don't think it's one of her best works. And not all of it is, you know, especially festive, but there's a really funny scene involving Christmas stockings where the guests are staying in this big country house and the master of the house insists upon sort of filling the Christmas stockings, and his rather terrifying sight to the poor guests who are often woken up in the early hours of the morning by him not so silently finishing their stockings. It's just really funny. But yes, so I do recommend reading this, but if this is your first Nancy Mitford, I do think that she's written better books like The Pursuit of Love and Love in a Cold Climate, so don't expect this to be the best of hers, but it still is a fun, entertaining read over Christmas. If you like Evil and War, then I would definitely recommend giving Nancy Mitford a go. There's a bit of similarity in their writing styles, especially perhaps in her earlier work. But yes, I do recommend this one. And then for a few years when I was in London and I visited my favourite bookshop, Dole Books, every Christmas, of course, to buy Christmas presents and to see their Christmas tree and generally just feel very festive. It was always such a treat to go. And Dole Books started publishing their own little volumes that were suitable for Christmas. These would come out every sort of November or December. And I absolutely love that they did a little volume. Let me show you. You can see that. It's Sherlock Holmes and the Adventure of the Blue Carbuncle by Arthur Conan Doyle. This is a Sherlock Holmes short story that I either read or listen to every Christmas. It's just one of those Christmas standards for me. And I love this short story. I love that a goose figures very highly in this book. We always have a goose for Christmas, and a very precious gemstone is discovered within a goose, and Sherlock Holmes has to figure out how on earth it got there and who this stone belongs to. And it's just a really fun mystery. I really enjoy it. I'm a huge Sherlock Holmes fan anyway, so that's part of the reason why I listen to this one every Christmas. It's a real favourite. And then Dole Books also compiled, hopefully you can see that, this little volume which is called Christmas with Dole People, and it's a collection of Christmassy short stories by Saki, who is such a gifted short story writer. And a lot of these short stories are very entertaining. They're really funny. They're about people behaving rather badly at Christmas time, and they just really put a smile on my face. They're very entertaining reads. And then another little collection of short stories about the festive period that Dole Book published. It's called Home for Christmas, and it's a collection of stories by people like Michael Morpurgo, A.S. Byatt and Lenny James, and it's just a sweet little collection. They make great stocking stuffers, I think, too. I've bought these as stocking stuffers for people in the past, and I just think they make really fun little reads on Christmas Day too, so I love those. Then this is a book I haven't read yet, but it's on my Cozy Christmas to be read pile, and it's Murder in the Snow, A Cotswold Christmas Mystery by Gladys Mitchell. I have to admit that the cover really caught my eye, but Mrs. Bradley has gone to spend Christmas in the Cotswolds, and of course a mystery unfolds. And this just sounds like quite a fun, gentle, cozy sort of read. So this is what I'm looking forward to curling up with myself for the first time this December. And then I can't do a cozy Christmas video without talking about the Miss Read books. She wrote some lovely tales for Christmas. There's The Christmas Mouse by Miss Read, No Holly for Miss Quinn. I think perhaps this might be one of my very favourites. I love this one. Poor Miss Quinn wants to enjoy a sort of quiet Christmas on her own, but those plans get spoilt. However, it's all for the best in the end, and it's just a lovely, gentle tale. And then there's Village Christmas as well, which I have, but that is also in this collection, which is called A Country Christmas by Miss Read. And this is a lovely compilation of some of her Christmassy stories. It has Village Christmas in it, The Fairacre Ghost, The White Robin, and a few extracts, Jingle Bells. It's just a really lovely Christmas companion. If you like Miss Read's writing, then it's definitely worth looking out to see if you can get at least a second-hand copy of this. I don't know if this would still be in print, but generally you can find her books second-hand or on Kindle, so I recommend those. Oh, and then I haven't read this one yet. This is another one on my to-be-read pile, and it's Christmas at Thrush Green by Miss Read. I haven't read this one yet because I think it was the last one that was written. It was actually finished, I think, after she died, and her notes were sort of used to properly finish the book. And I've just never read this one myself yet, so I don't quite know what it will be like, but I'm looking forward to hopefully reading it this year, and I hope that I enjoy it. And then I absolutely love the Rumple Stories by John Mortimer. And again, this is a brilliant collection of the Rumple Christmas stories. I like this set because I think they pretty much are all Christmassy from what I remember too. And they're just really funny again. I mean, if you want something that will make you laugh, then I really recommend Rumple. He's the Old Bailey hack, as he calls himself. He's a barrister and works a lot of criminal cases at the Old Bailey, but he's a defence barrister, so he's always sort of working for the underdog. And again, they're just such brilliantly plotted stories. You always wonder how Rumple is going to win over the judge or win over the jury, or actually find out the real solution to the crime or to the mystery a lot of the time. He's a bit of a detective in this as well as a defence barrister, and he's just such a fantastic character. I so enjoy these. I love listening to Leo McKern reading the Rumple stories. He played Rumple in the famous TV series, and he just really became Rumple, who's amazing. And unfortunately I can't get those on Audible. In fact, I can't find them anywhere, but I think on YouTube you actually can find a few if you sort of Google that in YouTube. So I'm hoping there'll be some Christmas ones I can listen to. But I think I read this either last year or the year before, and it was a really fun Christmassy read, so really recommend this. And it gives you a nice little taste of Rumple too, so then you can see if you want to read more by John Mortimer. Now, this book I absolutely adore. It only takes you about 10 minutes to read it, but it is absolutely hilarious. It's by John Julius Norwich. I was telling you about his Christmas crackers earlier. It's called The 12 Days of Christmas, and it's illustrated by Quentin Blake. And it's a really funny take on the famous Christmas carol of The 12 Days of Christmas. And it imagines the poor fiancée called Emily in this, who is sent on each day of Christmas. First the partridge in the pear tree, then the 2 turtle doves, and 3 French hens. And I think by the time it gets to the hens, she starts feeling a little less loving towards her fiancé. And it's a collection of letters that she writes to him. Here's an example of one. 28th December. Dearest Edward, what a surprise! 4 calling birds arrived this morning. They are very sweet, even if they do call rather loudly. They make telephoning impossible, but I expect they'll calm down when they get used to their new home. Anyway, I'm very grateful. Of course I am. Love from Emily. By the end, not surprisingly, the engagement is no longer intact, and you can see it all has sort of descended into chaos, especially when the milkmaids turn up. The Quentin Blake illustrations in this are just fabulous. They bring the hilarious words to life, and yeah, it's just such a funny book. I really recommend it. And then next up, I love this Christmas collection by Jeanette Winterson. It's called Christmas Days, 12 Stories and 12 Feasts for 12 Days. And it's a collection of her festive stories, but also what I especially love about this is that she's included recipes and personal anecdotes from her life that are appropriate to the festive season. There's a beautiful passage in this where she describes her Christmas Eve ritual, what she cooks on that evening, what she listens to on the radio, essentially how she prepares herself for Christmas Day, but also enjoys a real moment of quiet and reflection and calmness for herself on Christmas Eve. She, I believe, was also friends with the writer Ruth Rendell, and she talks a little bit about that friendship in this book too. It's a really lovely read. I really recommend it for the festive season. I'm looking forward to returning to this one myself. I love books that mix in a bit of food, because for me at least, food is such an important part of Christmas that I love hearing about other people's traditions surrounding the food that they serve at this time, as well as little rituals that they have in terms of what music they listen to or what books they read, for instance. That really appeals to me, and that's one of the reasons why I love this so much. And speaking of that, I have to mention Nigel Slater's The Christmas Chronicles. This is such a joyous book. I absolutely love it. If you're a bit unsure about winter, if it's a period that you struggle with, then I would recommend reading this, because I think Nigel Slater can make almost anyone love winter. He's helped me actually to enjoy this season a lot more. I mean, I never hated winter, but I always did struggle a bit with it. And when I first read this book, he really opened my eyes to some of the pleasures that this season really holds. Like going out for a brisk walk in the cold and then coming back and having a hot chocolate or something a little bit naughtier, and enjoying the sort of sights and senses, smells, tastes of the season. I think he just does that so well. He, in fact, extends winter for himself. He loves it that much that he, in March, often goes to Japan, up in the mountains where he can still enjoy the snow. This book, I think it starts the very end of October, beginning of November. It looks like it actually starts the 1st of November. And he also has some essays at the beginning on things like fire, the scent of winter, the coldest winters, eating winter, the food of fairy tales, coming in from the cold, the landscape being out in the cold, the winter light, stars and shadows, a walk through snow. Essentially some of his favourite things about the season, and reading his writing about it is so special. I mean, he's such an amazing writer. Of course, there's loads of recipes in this as well, which is also wonderful. I've made quite a few of his Christmassy recipes from them. But there's also so much writing about the food, about the season, about his pleasures in the season. I think also it's a book that isn't just for Christmas. It's really a book for all of winter. Like I said, it goes from the 1st of November, and I think it goes right through to, does it go to March, or does he just write about extending March himself? Yeah, it goes to January. But it's just such a brilliant read, and I really do recommend this. It's a lovely, cosy book to curl up with. Now, I can't mention Christmas without mentioning Charles Dickens, of course, too. A Christmas Carol means Christmas to so many people. And I read the Christmas Carol myself probably about 7 or 8 years ago. And if you've never actually read it, I really recommend reading it. I think so many of us feel like we know the story, so we don't necessarily perhaps have to read it. But it is a wonderful read. I so enjoyed it. It's quite a short read, of course, too. And this collection, Dickens at Christmas, which has the lovely Emily Sutton cover, which I love, has a lot of his Christmas stories. So it has his collection of what they call the Christmas books by him, which of course includes A Christmas Carol. Also the Chimes, which is one of my favourites of his, actually. Again, it's just a very slim novella really, but it's a really wonderful Christmas read. I highly recommend it. They include The Cricket on the Hearth, The Battle of Life, The Haunted Man, and The Ghost's Bargain. And they also have a few extracts from household words that he wrote before. There's an extract from the Pickwick Papers, and it's just a really lovely volume. And I think that this is a brilliant book to just look through during this time of year. I really recommend reading A Christmas Carol, like I said, also The Chimes. That's one of my very favourite books, and I think Dickens, he's just such a classic at Christmas, and I really think that this is a beautiful collection of his Christmas stories, so I really do recommend that one. And then finally, Christmas wouldn't be Christmas without Little Women for me. I mean, this is such a nostalgic read. I haven't talked too much about all of the childhood books that I like to read at Christmas in this video, but I'll be sharing a few more in future videos. But Little Women is always a classic for me at Christmas time. I think that December is a period of real nostalgia for me. I often turn to childhood books as sort of cosy comfort reads, so a few of those will always be on my Christmas list, and Little Women is right up there. I love the opening scenes that are Christmassy. Of course, then the book sort of goes all through the rest of the year, but it's just a wonderful read that always spells Christmas to me. And I'm holding up this huge edition, but it's my special annotated Little Women edition. And sometimes over Christmas, I like to not maybe read the whole of Little Women, but read some of my favourite parts from it. And it's quite nice to pull out this big fat edition then, which gives you some more insights to the story and to the time period and Louisa May Alcott's life as well. So I really enjoy this one. But I'd love to hear about some of the books that you read in December. Let me know if any of these are appealing to you, which books you like the sound of. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll be back sharing more Christmassy content sort of throughout the rest of November and of course in December, and I hope you enjoy it all. But thanks again for watching. Do give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel, which you can do by clicking on my face that pops up on the screen over here. And I'll be back again on Friday for the regular tea reads with my mum. See you then. Bye.